Welcome to another episode of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm a mental performance coach for hockey players throughout North America and Europe. Across from me is Jeff Lerg, former professional hockey player. Jeff, will you get us started today with a segment that we just started to get questions from the people in the audience?
Yeah, we want to get more dialed in with our community here. So Natalie's back, and I think we have a couple questions that were sent in through our website, through our forum that way. So Nat, why don't you lead us off with some questions?
Yeah, here we go, guys. Let's get started. So our first question reads, my coach has favorites on the team that are very obvious. I've talked to my teammates that also feel the same way, that are not deemed as the favorites on the team as well. And we agree that something needs to change. So how do I go about this without calling out my teammates who are the favorites, who also won't understand, and not hurt my playing time with bringing it up to my coach in the process?
Simple answer is be overwhelmingly awesome. Like if you're overwhelmingly awesome, your coach is going to play you. I can look back at my career when I was kind of just okay, so. I sat on the bench. It's easy to get to that point of, oh, coach knows this person longer than me or likes them. They have a personal connection. But the fact was I wasn't good enough. If you get a shutout every game, if you get a hat trick every game, if you're a player, your coach is going to want to play you. You know, coaches really aren't that smart, sorry. But if they win, they're going to keep playing the players who help them win.
And I'd say the longer answer to that is it's one of two things. There's this kind of continuum all the way out on the right. Hey, it's crooked, it's unfair, it's awful, something's wrong with this coach. On the other side, the coach has favorites because those kids were awesome. Those kids were his favorites because they're doing the job, and anywhere in between. So whatever that thing is, you can be pissed and bitter. Be frustrated, but decide what you're going to do. Because in the end, just like you said, all you have is this opportunity in front of you. You could leave a team, you can talk to the coach, you can talk to other people, but in the end, you got to find a way to do your job. That is the ultimate answer.
Awesome. All right. So the second question reads, I am struggling picking what practice or games my child will attend as they play both basketball and hockey. I don't want to sway them one direction because they excel in both sports, but we are getting to the age where coaches in both sports are not happy with my child missing things. How should I go about this with my child without putting my opinion on what sport they should decide to fully play?
Yeah, first off, multiple layers to this. The first is the kid needs to be dragging you to the activity, like whichever one that they're dragging you to. If they got their hockey bag packed in the garage waiting for you to pick them up, or vice versa, having the basketball dribbling in the driveway, whatever it is, they got to have that passion to do it. But secondly, it becomes that balance of what we talked about a lot, the multi-sport athlete. Those are super important attributes to develop. And you do have to balance the competitiveness of it. I know for me personally, I kind of had that competitiveness in each sport until I got to the end of middle school. And then it became like, hey, we all know I'm all in on hockey. I couldn't put a hockey stick down any time of day. So family-wise, we knew that's where I was going. But the decision needs to be made internally with of course, there's that difficult balance at the end of the day. If one of the coaches kicks you off the team, they've made the decision for you. And if you miss it that bad, then you might revert back to it.
One of the great things USA Hockey talks about this at their national camps all the time, this idea of having these multiple sports to build your whole body. But even at the symposium I was at recently, we had orthopedic surgeons, PTs, talking about how they'll find people who are one sport athletes their whole lives, and they're just out of balance. There's all these weaknesses that are there from having these tendencies to move in certain ways with different sports. So I think the shorter answer for me is when you're younger, keep doing these things, keep developing your whole body. And as you get to a point where you become developed in those kind of teenage years, it's got to be some kind of decision, because you and I both know there's no way you can be both of those things at the high end.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Well, thank you for answering those questions. And listeners, if you want to write in, please visit our website, goaliementors.com/dialed and driven, or you can look at the episode description.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. Today we've got a guest for the second time on our podcast. Dillon Kelley's nice enough to come back and talk about his side of the world, helping people get better. Jeff, do you want to start off?
Well, DK's back. Congratulations, DK. You came on episode 10 and you didn't sync our podcast. We're in our 40s now. So you're our first second time guest. So we're fired up to have you. The first time you came on, we talked a lot about your super intriguing hockey career, that kind of path that you made that wasn't the normal path, but you made it to professional hockey, which was awesome and inspired a lot of people. We didn't get a lot of time to discuss your true passion and profession now, which is who you are most known as on social media and in person is DKmobility. So first off, welcome back. Secondly, now give us a little input on the DKmobility brand, how that started, kind of what you learned to get it started, and give us some input.
Yeah, so this wasn't the plan, but I started my business, DKmobility, and my business Instagram, DKthemobilityguy, probably a month before COVID hit. My whole thing was, growing up in Northern Michigan, I didn't really have access to, obviously, a place like the Athlete Lab that I run now, but I wanted to find a way to provide other kids who were like myself, who maybe grew up in untraditional hockey markets, didn't have access to like a high level sports performance training facility. I wanted to give those kids the same opportunity to train and try and, climb the hockey ladder as a kid who does live in the Detroit area and have access to those things. So, that was kind of the whole spark behind starting an Instagram page and starting a business. My thought was like, okay, hey, let's just, start making content and putting it out there and see what happens. I was listening to an audiobook. It was called Extraordinary Habits and Extraordinary People and the Habits That Make Them That Way. I think it's written by Brennan Bouchard is the guy's name. And he pulls up an Andy Warhol quote, which to be honest, I couldn't even tell you who Andy Warhol is, but the quote has stuck with me to this day. And it was, don't think about making art. Make it, put it out there, and while people are deciding if it's good or not, make more art. So that was kind of like my philosophy going into my Instagram page. And I was still in the process of, getting certified as a personal trainer and a strength coach and getting certified as a mobility specialist. So there's a little bit of imposter syndrome there too, right? Like as someone who's just starting out and like I really hadn't done a ton of coaching of other athletes. I've only just been training myself for at the time, I think I was 23, 24. So there was a little fear, like, when you're not I wasn't someone who was big on posting on social media, like even on my personal stuff. So it was kind of a big jump for me to now like hop in front of a camera and like do a bunch of stuff and, throw it up there and hopefully not be judged by it, because the whole influencer thing was kind of new at that point. And we all obviously have a little bit of a fear of being judged. And that quote just kind of stuck with me. I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And from there, things kind of just took off. And it was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I got my certifications. I started working with more and more athletes. And then things kind of just blew up from there.
I mean, you don't look like a mobility guy.
Yeah.
You look like a guy who's just, you could be a fighter, you could be a football player. You're just big and strong. And I see the stuff you do, and it's so credible because what you're doing doesn't look like it should be able to be done. Honestly, like you shouldn't be able to do a split. What is that? Nor will hardly anybody think about doing that. I mean, when you're thinking about hockey, you're thinking about playing hockey or whatever your sport is. You go to the gym to find somebody like you to help them become big, giant, strong, whatever that is. You don't think about the mobility thing. It's a fairly new thing in terms of, and you show that even for you. I mean, you're a guy who it actually seems like it's impossible. Some of the stuff you do looks like it's impossible. And you prove how valuable the whole thing is and how it's possible for everybody. So if a guy as strong as you can be that, imagine what everybody else can be. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that was kind of my reasoning for wanting to go specifically down the mobility route, because it was something I didn't find out until I was already 1 year into my pro career. And I was always a good athlete. I played 3 high school varsity sports. I was always very athletic, whatever I did. But I was never like the most mobile goaltender. I was a good skater and stuff like that, but I wasn't someone who was like dropping in the splits on command and things like that. Like I wasn't anything super special from a mobility standpoint. And I started doing some mobility training, and it was something that I was like, wow, like for someone I've always been into training. I've always worked really, really hard at my training, and I've always kind of been a student of that game, if you want to call it that. And this was something that I like had never heard of or seen before. And it was kind of mind blowing the first few times I did it. And not only just from like the mobility standpoint, but like, I woke up after my first mobility session and I was like legit sore. Like I had lifted, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is mobility strength training. This is something that no one's doing. I haven't seen this on any, I haven't seen this anywhere in social. I haven't heard of anyone doing this before. Like, so this is where I want to be. Like, I don't want to just be one of many strength coaches. I want to be the mobility guy. And more specifically, I want to be the mobility guy for hockey goalies. And I found success in, which probably goes against what most people think when they start businesses, but rather than just trying to attack the masses, I was like, no, I want to specialize myself to like the narrowest degree as possible, mobility and hockey goalies. That's it. And see if that can kind of catch. And it did. And, it all of a sudden popped me right to the top of the list for, if you're a goalie trying to train somewhere, like this is your guy, because no one else is doing what this guy's doing versus, how many strength coaches are out there that just kind of work with anyone. Right. So, that was kind of my biggest thing that really helped me kind of get into it. It was an eye opener for myself in my game. And I was like, this is something I want to learn and master and be able to teach other kids. So, it 100% not only just helped me elevate my game to be able to, keep playing and climb levels, because obviously as a goaltender, you got to be flexible, but it was something like, which at the time I wasn't even really thinking about. Like, I mean, I don't have to knock on wood anymore. I'm retired, but I didn't have one single serious injury my whole career. Never missed a game, never missed a practice. Like, and being a goalie who's a big body, like a lot of wear and tear in the lower half, like, I watched my goalie partners almost every year have something come up throughout the year, and I was just always healthy as could be. So, aside from just like the gains of mobility and flexibility, the injury prevention side of it, and just like the overall health maintenance side of it was huge for me. And now that I'm retired, everyone needs mobility. At the time, I was doing it to be a better goalie, but now I'm doing it to just, feel I'm not old, but like I'm going to get old. So like, I want to be able to get out of bed and feel pretty good when I am old. And this is going to kind of help me do that. So, I think just the injury prevention side and the management of aches and pains that we all kind of just deal with on the daily. It was a big part of that. So,
and you're someone who you saw that it was helping you, just like all athletics, all goaltenders. Like, we need a little bit of proof to keep believing, and so you kind of found something that was working, and you kept doing it and using it. And you obviously, like when we were growing up, we weren't exposed to all these new training opportunities as well. So I think you did an awesome job of taking what you had. You're a big physical frame. You're not really built to be this kind of lightweight athletic type goaltender, but then you saw the area you needed to improve, and then you worked at it and you got way better. And it was, of course, that was a recipe for success for you. That became, I'm sure, if someone was scouting you as a teenager, they would say, I probably could move better and more efficiently. And you just inherently kind of found that, which is interesting. And it's cool to bring up, because then it helped you, A, stay healthy, B, you reach a super high level. Mm-hmm. And I know from all of our perspectives, each of us, Chris Palmer is our mental performance coach at the Athlete Academy. Dillon Kelley is our strength and conditioning performance coach at the Academy. And then I'm the director of mentorship. We're around each other daily with our 35 Athlete Academy members. So we wanted to have you back on to talk about kind of this little triangle of experiences that we have with athletes in general. I get to see them in one setting. Chris sees them maybe when they need a little bit more time and confidential conversations to work through some things. And then you get to see them in the gym. So I guess with that, what are some things that you see, whether it's these teenage athletes or other teenage athletes, that they're want to do willingly? Maybe there's some areas of performance training that they always want to do. And then what are some other areas that they kind of stay away from, but as their coach that they need to do?
For sure. It's kind of funny. Like the first thing that comes to my mind is arm farm. And we call arm farm, it's like a training. We have a bunch of different arm farms, but arm farm is basically a bicep exercise paired with a tricep exercise. They love that. The girls, the boys, like anytime you say, hey, go rip arm farm, bang, they're all over it. Like ripping some dumbbell curls, some tricep pull downs, like they love it.
Well, you can see the results immediately. You start getting a little pump in, and then they can see themselves.
For sure. So that's one thing that I find pretty funny, like that they all love to do. And, all of them are hockey players, so they don't really need big biceps or triceps, but they all love that. They're all into the lower body stuff, lower body strength training, things like that. Mobility is honestly something that is hit or miss. Like it takes some convincing. It takes some, like the goalies are obviously all over it because that's a position that they need it. They use it a lot. Position players, they don't use their mobility nearly as much, so they don't see the benefit in it until they're banged up and they're hurt or something's just constantly bugging them. And then they're like, oh, what can I do to fix it? And then, you help them fix that issue. And now they're like, oh, okay, proof's in the pudding. So, that's something that takes a little bit of convincing. Obviously, no one really loves conditioning. For us, we've got the sprint lasers in there, so that makes it a little bit more enjoyable. The kids enjoy, running on the lasers and comparing their times and trying to beat their previous PRs and competing against each other. So, that's one of the big reasons why we have so much technology in the gym is to make some of these things that, aren't as inviting for athletes to make it more fun, more competitive for them. So they have a little bit more, they enjoy doing it a little bit more. But, I'd say some other things that kids probably need to focus more on and don't. It's the little stuff. It's the foam rolling every single day. It's the trigger point work, just managing their bodies because again, that's the tedious stuff that like it ain't glamorous. It ain't really fun. You're sitting there. It hurts, right? Foam rolling isn't necessarily like an enjoyable thing. There's pain there. And then it's not anything flashy either. So, but it's something that if you do it consistently, it makes a huge impact over the course of your body, over the course of the entire season. So, I think that's something that we try to implement more of and drive into these kids to pay a little bit more attention to. And, we've done a lot of breath work stuff with them lately as well to just teach them kind of why that's important and how they can use their breath to, manage their emotions and control the noise in their head and things like that. But I think, kind of off the top of my head, those are a few things that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like everyone in life, we like doing things we're really good at.
Yeah,
right. And so the things that you've named, they're either harder or things that haven't been exposed to them frequently. And I always kind of bring up that fact of the nature of life right now is we're all looking for immediate results.
Yep.
The foam rolling, they're not going to look back and be like, oh, I had a great day foam rolling. Look how strong you know what I mean? Like it takes some time to get through. So I thought that's very interesting to hear your perspective because I see the kids in another light as well. I'm on the ice with them during their skill sessions and seeing them in their classroom. And Chris, you have a whole different experience with them. Not that we're going to name names or be personal with any of your clients, but what are some of the things or your impression that you have of the athletes in that space where 2 times a week they're hearing you with a mental performance topic to discuss and then kind of more one-on-one or group closed door conversations?
Yeah. Well, before off camera, we actually were talking about, I guess what Dillon saw with a client of his that happened to be a client of mine too. And he's talking about how that kid just really wasn't given everything he had. And without giving any details, I could tell immediately that that's because this kid had some stuff going on, and that's everybody's life, right? Like Dillon, if you have a dog, your dog's going to die one day. Jeff, as good as it is, he might get some injury, and now you can't do sprints on Saturday. Everybody has stuff. So I think the main thing is that people's stuff outside the world, outside of their hockey world, affects their hockey world. And if you're upset because something's going on in your family, you're upset because you're not getting where you want to be on a lineup, whatever those things are, working through that stuff keeps everything from affecting everything, because in life, everything affects everything. So I think that's the biggest thing. Just where you are outside in the world really affects your drive and how much you're ready to kind of show up.
And I think, and we've talked about a variety of topics, and we've tried to give these actionable steps. The habit building. We gave some tips on having 5 great habits to help these athletes, in hopes that the habits will overcome probably some of the personal things that everyone has. Everyone's going to have something. No one has the same storybook, and of course, everyone's dealt that different hand. Some much more difficult than others. Chris, you're a perfect example of that. You talk about growing up poor with a hose coming into your house as your water supply, but somehow you carved your way out to becoming an All-American college athlete. So you found your why, and you had the influences around you to kind of inspire you and impact you positively. And I think just from knowing each of us and seeing our daily work, we try to be that person in one way or another for all these athletes. DK really connects with athletes not only in the gym, but there's countless times that they're pulling him aside for advice or mentorship. Same with me, just in my role as director of mentorship. Of course, they feel like they have to do that. And then with you, Chris, that's your role as mental performance, but I'm sure you obviously get a lot of one-on-one time. So I wanted to kind of bring that connectivity up, because to steal Chris's phrase he uses as, everything affects everything. And until we started to kind of talk more as a group, it even kind of hit us, kind of blindsided us that, yeah, of course, so-and-so isn't performing well in certain areas because of, kind of confidential information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think it's so hard, because when it comes down to it, it's not so easy to be a human. You make peace with that, and it's awesome to be a human. It's both things. I mean, it is puke your guts up. I cannot believe how unfair the world is, terrible, terrible suffering. If you make peace with it and go, hey, everybody's in that boat. Life isn't so easy. Then you can see all the stuff that's easy and awesome and amazing and like worth living for. I love that part of this, because every single person I've ever met has something that's in the way. And once we identify what it is and make peace with it, there's a chance to go for what you want.
And DK, for you mentor athletes as well, mentor goalies, and maybe you can share a little bit of light on how you help your athletes you deal with kind of get to that point of, I know what you're going through sucks. It's not, I don't, we feel sorry for you, but then when and how can we help these athletes kind of flip the switch to be like, okay, who cares? Go attack it,
right?
And with taking all the empathy away from certain situations.
Sure. I think honestly, the thing that helps me connect with kids who are dealing with stuff is just my personal experiences. Like I've had those as well, and I think that's the best way to get through to a kid is like, if they're going to be vulnerable with you and tell you what they're going on, you got to be vulnerable with them and share your experiences too. So they truly know that they're not alone. It's one thing to say and be like, yeah, buddy, like, I've been there. I know what you're feeling. But unless you elaborate on that, like they don't know if you're just blowing smoke or if you've actually been there. So, I'm pretty much an open book with the kids that I mentor. I think that is what carries the most weight is like, hey, I know you're going through this. Let me show you my experiences. Like I know last time I was on, we talked about, my family's divorce in the middle of my COVID hockey year. And, that ended up being something that truthfully helped propel my hockey career, because hockey became my escape now versus something that, maybe before provided a little bit of stress because I was worried about the results and, getting to the next level and blah, blah, blah. So, and then at that point, hey, there's something much bigger going on in life right now than me getting to the next level or having a bad game. So now rather than focusing on that, let's focus on hockey being your escape from this other thing that's much bigger than, the game of hockey itself. And, understanding that we all go through stuff and we're all going to go through more stuff, but the things we're going through aren't here to stay. And you have the power to choose what you do with the negativity that's going on in your life. You can either let it be your downfall and something that keeps you down there, or you can flip a switch and, say, you know what, hey, this sucks, but this is going to be something that I look back on a year from now, 5 years from now, and I'm going to be grateful that it happened because it was the fuel to my fire to help me, move forward, whether that's in hockey, that's in business, whatever it is. And it's going to be something that helps you grow. And now next time you go through something shitty, you're going to think about the last time you went through something shitty. And it's still going to feel shitty. Like, it's not going to make it feel any better, but you're going to have that kind of peace of mind in the back of your head that, like, hey, last time I went through something difficult like this, I took 5 steps forward after I got through like the hard part of it. How many steps am I going to take forward this time? And I think when you're going through hard things, that's when you need to lean on your habits the most. I'll get vulnerable again here. When I retired and took this job, my girlfriend broke up with me probably like 2 weeks after. So I'm like, all right, my hockey career's done. I'm jumping into this whole new transition of life. Now my girlfriend dumped me, who I thought was going to move here, and we were going to, start a life together, blah, blah, blah. And like, that was probably some of the most consistent in my habits. And I've had a morning routine for 10 years now. Like, I've been very consistent in my habits, but that was probably the most consistent I've ever been, because I would wake up and I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to feel like shit today regardless. So I might as well do the things that are going to make me feel a little bit better. At least I'm not going to feel lazy and fat. Like, get up, meditate, do your cold therapy, hop in the cold tub, get your workout in, journal. Like, those things are going to make me feel a little bit better. So if 1 to 10 on the shitty scale, 10 being really shitty, if I can do those things and it takes me from a 9 to an 8, that's a win. So, and then I, got through all that and I feel a lot better than I probably would have had I just completely neglected myself during that hard part. So
you bring up 2 really, really, really good things. One thing is that somehow every person on the planet who's not dead has somehow survived every awful thing that's ever happened. Just think of that. 8 billion people, we all have one thing in common, and that's it. Somehow we survived every bad thing. So everything does wind up being survivable. But I think there's this breakdown. This is great for parents and for coaches if you happen to be listening. I think it's so tempting to go to, hey, just be positive, or tempting to say, hey, throw some dirt on it. Well, yeah, those are great, but just the simple acknowledgement, like you said, you don't have to become somebody's therapist. You say, hey, I get it. I'm sorry, what's going on. You kind of connect with them some. Just that little tiny bit of allowing them to be a human lets them know that you care. And then you can throw some dirt on it. Then you can look for the positive. If you just keep telling your kids to throw dirt on it, if you keep just telling them to be tough, you're just missing this other part. And it doesn't take much. Like what you said, you just acknowledge it. It makes a huge difference.
And you made a really good point. Multiple things there, especially on the fuel to the fire. We're not always going to be able to empathize with how people's certain situations are in their life. But what we can try to steer them toward is use that as your fuel to fire you to overcome it. You made an awesome point on kind of how you were feeling down in the dumps on life. Nothing was really kind of bouncing your way, and you had to control what you could control. You controlled your great habits, and that can be transferred over to any athlete who's in a slump. Like, you just feel like you don't wake up with that awesome energy after you let up 8 goals the night before. Like, you got to kind of find a way to control what you can control and get yourself back to refueling that fire. So very, very interesting points. Thanks for bringing those up. And in our roles as mentors, that's something for us. Like, we got to kind of keep finding ways to connect with the athletes. I always use that phrase, connect before you direct. And that's exactly what you do. You find a way to relate to their certain situation. And I had 2 goalies call me this week. Both are done with torn labrums for the year. Both are going to be getting surgery soon. Fortunately, unfortunately for me, I had the direct experience of having that labrum surgery. But if it wasn't that exact injury, I would have found another way to bring up, past experiences of when I kind of had that kind of down in the dumps end of the season experience. So thanks for bringing all those up, because we're constantly looking for ways to bring other analogies and ways to connect with our listeners.
For sure. I think the hard, obviously, yeah, like no one likes going through the hard stuff, but it's still an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to get better. And you're training your mindset. And just like when you have a bad game, it's an opportunity to bounce back the next day and build that mental toughness. Like, we do the same thing in life.
So before we wrap up, though, can I just ask you, is there anything else you would want to say, just anything at all you think might be relevant for listeners today?
I think, like, whether you're a parent, a teammate, a coach, just understand that everyone has stuff going on. No one fully knows what the other person's going through, whether it's a kid, it's a family, it's a parent, a coach. Like, you never know the whole story. So do what you can to show grace when, you can tell someone might need it. And, if you are a coach, like, it's your job to find a way to motivate that kid, whether it's screaming, yelling at them, if they're that kind of kid who gets motivated by that, or if it's sitting down, putting your arm around them and, just having a heart to heart with them. Like, our job as leaders and mentors is to find ways to connect with our kids, our athletes, and get the most out of them through the hard times, through the good times. And even if that kid only has 50%, to give that day, like, let's find a way to help him give as much of that 50% as we can. And it's easy because we all get wrapped up in our own lives and the shit that we're dealing with, in our own lives. And people project a lot, right, based on what they're dealing with. And, like, I just think trying to understand that we never know what someone else is going through, and trying to sympathize or empathize with each other, and just understand that, hey, you know what, that kid might be acting a certain way today, but who knows, maybe he's going through something. And just finding a way to motivate those kids on those bad days is really important. And that's ultimately going to go a long ways for that athlete, whether, they stick around and work with you or not, but they'll never forget, the guy who was there for them when they were going through it, whether you knew they were going through it or not. Like, just being a positive influence and helping them even through the tough times, trying to notice the things that they can still be grateful for, even during, like, the toughest times. Like, we still have things to be grateful for, right? Whether it's something as small as the sun being out today, right? So trying to focus on gratitude even during the tough times is, I think, something that helped me in my hockey career, has helped me continue to help me in all stages of my life. So
I'm so happy we covered so many things, and just kind of a summary for today. Dillon, thank you for being out here. I think your real thing isn't so much the things that you know on mobility. I think you meet people where they are, which is hard for somebody as tall as you are. But seriously, like, you really do meet people where they are, and you genuinely care about this. And I think it's really important in your career, kids who are listening to this, and parents, find people who are your people. Find the encouragers. Find the people who get you and encourage you. And, you're just a role model of empathy and encouragement. And it's so important. And then you can get the job done, because it's not so easy sometimes to be a machine. None of us are. But I love that. I love that you care about that. I love that you're a role model of somebody who's actually gone through things, who people definitely call a disadvantage, lots of disadvantages. And still, you keep picking yourself back up and figuring things out. I think it's the most important thing. In the end, when people die, what they worry about? They worry about whether they spent enough time with the people they cared about, and they worried about whether they did enough of what they really wanted to, but maybe were afraid to do. And giving people courage is a giant thing. So, Jeff, you want to take us out?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, DK. It was awesome. Very, very insightful. Many different avenues we covered. And to all of our listeners, in summary, it's kind of a reminder that you're always going to have some piece of adversity coming your way. You never know when it's going to occur. So find a way to fuel that fire of yours that you have instinctively inside of you. I always talk about the goal setting, but find your mentor, find your reason, and remember to stay dialed and driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success.